Welcome to Sips, Suds, and Smokes. Not so live from the Dude in the Basement studios. Here are your hosts, the Good Old Boys. Welcome to Sips, Suds, and Smokes. I'm your host, Good Old Boy Mike, and today I have Reverend Mark joining me for a tasting of some stout beers. Our segment is going to cover about 14 beers that we have discussed, and we've had a good old time tasting these. Hey, it's been a blind tasting, so we've actually walked into this, set up these beers today where we had no idea what we were tasting. We've both selected our top four, and we've selected one at the bottom, and we're going to go through and offer up our Suds ratings for all these beers. So this is our very first episode. Some of you may have not had a chance to understand our Sud ratings yet. If you take a look at our Facebook page, you'll see our Suds ratings, and our belch ratings are number 1, hey, that sucks, give me anything but a bud. Number 2, was that a belch? Number 3, what a relief. Number 4, a body really should not make that sound. And our top rating is listen to that hang time, give me another. So those are our Suds ratings here at Sips, Suds, and Smokes. Thanks for tuning in today. Joining me is Reverend Mark. Reverend Mark and Good Old Boy Mike, we've been drinking Suds for about 20 plus years. And on top of that, Reverend Mark actually has been making beer for a lot longer than that. So why don't you say hello to our audience here, Reverend Mark.
How you doing, everybody? It's so good to be visiting with you tonight and drinking some winter warmer beer.
Well, we're having a great time tasting these beers. So, Reverend Mark, I know that you've had a good time making beer, and tonight we're actually tasting stout beers. And if you can tell the audience a little bit about, what makes a stout beer? There are a lot of things that, we call things stout.
Right. Yeah, there's really about 5 or 6 different kinds of stout that are on the sort of stout spectrum. And so at the sort of the fair side of it, that is the dry side of it, that everybody typically goes to when you're in a bar, when you ask for a stout, is the Irish dry stout, and typically Guinness is what we associate with that. But then in addition to that, there's what's called a sweet stout, or sometimes it's called a milk stout. And it's slightly heavier and obviously sweeter by the implication than the dry, and it's oftentimes boiled with a little bit of lactose, which gives it a milky, creamy aspect. Then there's the oatmeal stout, in which oatmeal is simply part of the grain bill or the grist that is part of the mash that produces the beer. And then there's what's called a foreign extra stout, which again Guinness is known for, and you can get that in a bottled version. And it's a little darker and heavier and more alcoholic.
So you're saying here in the U.S. we're just drinking a bunch of watered down crap? Is that it?
Well, yeah. In a lot of bars, certainly in a lot of bars. Not the bars that I go to.
All right.
Then there's the American Stout, and a lot of what we're going to be sampling tonight are actually from American breweries. And, we're into a whole new sort of renaissance of beer making in America that, began probably 35, 40 years ago on the West Coast. And now here in the South, as well as just about any state that you happen to be traveling through, you're going to find really great microbreweries that will offer you an array of beer, like the different kinds of stouts we're going to be talking about tonight. And then, of course, there's on the far end of the spectrum is the Russian Imperial Stout.
Russian?
Yes.
Are you saying the Ruskies, they know how to make the stout?
Well, it's interesting. The Russians didn't make the stout as much as it was made by the British, but it was exported to the Russians and during the Tsarist the Tsar period of Russia, and it was actually made, they say, for Catherine the Great.
So the Brits got rid of it because it was good beer, or because they wanted to make friends with the Russians?
Well, yeah, it was really good beer diplomacy. Let's just say that.
It all boils down to who makes the best rum, who makes the best beer. Is that how the world goes around?
Yes, and so Rasputin, as we looked at one of the brands tonight, old Rasputin, but even though oftentimes the Russian Imperial Stout is a beer that may have migrated here from there, it actually really is an English beer, in a very similar way that we talk about the India Pale Ale, which is not, even though it went to India, it was exported to India, again, by the British.
So, Reverend Mark, I know you made a lot of beer. Have you made a stout beer? And why don't you tell our audience a little bit about some of the basic mechanics of making stout beer itself?
Well, actually, if you're looking at crafting a dry stout, which when I'm talking to people about going into all grain brewing, I say, it's kind of like when you're in culinary school. Just learn the basics first. You can't really do an incredible...
You have to speak Russian to make good stout beer?
No. Well, you'll eventually start speaking Russian if you have enough of them as you're going along. But really, they're very simple beers. A dry stout, as well as even an oatmeal stout, is made pretty much from English base malts, as they're called, which are pale malts, and then you just add a very small portion of roasted barley, and some brewers use caramel malts as well. But actually, there are many purists that say that all you need is like 90% pale malt and 10% roasted barley, and that's a stout. And just make sure that you get a really good, healthy slurry of yeast in there to convert all of the sugar to alcohol, and you wind up with a dry, roasty beer.
So, what makes it a dark beer is the roast.
It's the roasted
grains.
malts, which they start out, of course, as a pale malt, and then they're
the breweries
killed.
actually do they make it? Do they roast their own malts? Like, I know when they make scotch, they actually, they fire and roast their own grains. So
Right.
Do the same
No,
thing in
breweries typically are not in that business. You have what are called maltsters, and they source the malt, the malted barley or the barley, and then they malt it, and it's a process.
Ivan the Malta.
Ivan the Malta.
I'm here to break you up.
And then you have what are called, again, base malts, which are comprise anywhere from 80 to 90% of most beers, which are just pale. And then you add in specialty grains. And as we're discussing stouts tonight, it really has to do with just what percentage of the really dark malts you have to add in order to change a pale beer into a very dark beer. And believe it or not, it takes less than 10% of your total grain to give you the dark beer.
Interesting. Wow. Well, so I appreciate the setup and educating our audience a little bit about what a stout beer is. We learned an awful lot going through this. So let me give you a setup we walked through tonight. We tasted 14 beers, did a blind taste testing. Neither Reverend Mark or myself, good old Mike, knew what we were tasting. We just sat down, poured and sipped, and stacked up and rated everything. So we're going to go through a top four. So, Reverend Mark, what was your number one?
Well, my number one is actually from a brewery that's close to Nashville. It's called, the company is called Straight to Ale in Huntsville, Alabama, which we also call Rocket City. And it is the Russian Imperial Stout that they call Laika, which was actually the name of the dog that the Russians sent into space. Again, Huntsville is a NASA town, and so apparently these guys that are now brewing beer are former rocket scientists. So you can imagine what kind of beer that they're going to be turning out. But yeah, I like the Straight to Ale. It's a special batch, which they do just seasonally. And a lot of times, of course, when we buy the Imperial Stouts, which are really fairly high alcohol, this particular beer is right at 10% alcohol by volume. and has 75 IBUs, which means it's got a really good amount of bittering hops in there as well to counteract the sweetness.
So if you had to think about what's a good target for IBUs for a stout, where does that kind of start at?
Well, I would say that it would be a minimum of 50 IBUs for an imperial stout. I'm looking on my spec sheet right now, and I'm exactly right. Somewhere between 50 and 90 IBUs is the target range.
Never challenge a reverend.
Yeah. Well, and I've got a little experience. Yeah, 50 to 90 IBUs. That just simply means international bittering units. And you put bitter into beer just to make sure that it doesn't become overly sweet.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot about that. It's one of the things that both of us look for, whether it's for beer or wine or even food for that matter, is a certain measure of balance that you're looking before a lot of those basic taste profiles, sweet, bitter, texture, other things. So
apparently I'm going to have to drive to Huntsville to search this out because we have just the bottled product here in Nashville. But apparently, according to their website, they also have this beer available that has been aged in bourbon, cognac, and Bordeaux wine barrels.
All right, road trip.
Yep.
I know where Sip Suds and Smokes is going next. Really?
Yeah.
In a cognac barrel. That's a new.
Yeah. According to the website.
I've heard bourbon in one, but cognac that's a new twist to the occasion here. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, definitely road trip. Huh. All right, boys, down there straight to Hill. Just drop us a note by email. We'll let you know where to send that next cask beer so that we can check that out for you next time you break out. Definitely one of those. All right, so actually one of the interesting things, so Reverend Mark's top beer is actually my number 2. First off, what's your Suds rating on this?
Oh, I'll give it a 4.
Oh man, right up there at the top, right off the bat. Boy, you just so number 4 is the body should really not make that sound. All right. So I actually had some interesting taste. I thought it was very balanced, this particular beer, and had a very nice finish to it. And, I don't know what's going on down there in Alabama. I don't particularly like a lot of people from Alabama. It has nothing to do with their beer. It's more of their general proximity and their football teams. But anyway.
Yeah.
These guys in Huntsville, I don't know what they're doing down there, but they seem to get their act together. We're going to have another show pretty soon that's actually going to go through some IPAs. And actually, one of their IPAs is in the lineup, Monkey Knot. And so we were talking about beer names and stuff. And they have this one, which is all about, what's the name of this? It's a dog or something?
Yeah, the Latke is the name of the dog.
Yeah. The Russians put this dog in space, is that it?
Or Laika, yeah. It was the name of the dog that went into space.
So we're speculating. We think these are a bunch of ex-NASA guys that, basically are making beer down in Huntsville. Definitely have their act together, and we're really enjoying their beers. So we look forward to having more beers from Straight to Ale. My rating on this is actually at number 3, which is what a relief. So that's our Sud ratings. For Straight to Ale's Russian Imperial Stout, Laika. We're going to call it Laika, I guess. All right, so good old boy Mike, my number 1 choice was a New Belgian Imperial Coffee Stout. This was a great beer. I just thought it had everything that I was looking for. I described it as having the upper end of sweet and bitter. Was the thing that I really enjoyed about this. I think of maybe a tasting bell curve as a reverse bell curve where both sweet and bitter, it had the extremes of both around this. And definitely caught my attention. It's strange, but I didn't really think it was a coffee stout when I tasted it. I thought it was a really, really great beer. So I gave this Suds rating of 4. The body should really not make that sound. It was my highest rating today. Really caught my attention. All right.
And that beer was also in my top 4, but it was my number 4, and I gave it a 3. But I tell you, as it was,
what a relief!
Yeah, But I'll tell you, as it warms up, I might, the score may just inch up a little bit. So we'll get back to you later on that.
Well, either way, it was a really great beer. We look forward to more great beer from New Belgium as well. All right, so I've covered my top two. What's your number two there, Reverend Mark?
My number two is the Stout's Fat Dog Imperial Oatmeal Stout. And Stouts, which is Stoudt, is a brewery up in Pennsylvania. And this particular one, when you pour it, it looks really black. I mean, it just looks like oil or something. And yet it's a little viscous, meaning it has a little bit of kind of a thick body to it. But then as you drink it, it's not overly sweet or heavy, and its taste and its weight on the palate, and there's a little bit of nuttiness to it, and kind of a plum aspect as well. I found it was just a very drinkable beer.
So, it's very interesting that you happen to pick one of these. I spent a lot of time in Philadelphia over the last couple of years, and tasted a lot of great beers through Philadelphia and Delaware, the whole D.C. corridor. And this was not a beer that caught my attention at all, either today or, if I've tasted it just in passing. So, interesting that this hit, definitely your top three. So, look forward to more beer. So, what's your Suds rating on this one, Reverend Mark?
I'll give it a 4.
A 4. Again, man, he is so gracious. A body should really not make that sound. All right, okay. So we look forward to more beers from Stouts, and check this one out next time you see it at the bar or at your favorite retail place. All right, so my number 3, we ever covered my top two. My number 2 was straight to ale. My number 3 is actually from Sierra Nevada, their Narwhal Imperial Stout. Interesting. So this has just hit the market. This is a brand new beer this year for Sierra Nevada. They've made some stouts in the past, I believe, that I've tried. This one caught my attention, and I was a little shocked that this wound up in my top 4. It's still a really great beer. Some of my tasting notes on it were, it was kind of heavy on the palate, but it was really well balanced. So, it wasn't definitely a beer that made it to the top of these other two beers that we talked about. But my Suds rating is, I gave it a 3, which is what a relief. And it's great that Sierra Nevada is a really great brewery, and they made a really great beer. More importantly, a really great stout, which is not something I generally think of, coming out of Sierra Nevada. But I do think of always great beer coming from them. All right, we've covered your top 2, is that right? What's
my
your
top
number
2,
3?
And then my 4th, which was the same as your second.
All right, so what's your number 3 there, Reverend Mark?
Yeah, my number 3 beer is the Brooklyn Chocolate Stout.
That's right.
The Brooklyn, actually, they call it the Black Chocolate Stout, and it is it's their award-winning rendition of the Imperial Stout.
Is there a Russian involved?
Yes, it was actually brewed for Catherine the Great. They claim. I didn't know they've been in business that long.
Can you hear the Russian music as this is?
I can hear the balalaikas in the background. Yes. According to the people at Brooklyn, they use 3 separate mashes, and they must blend whatever the different mashes that they derive their wort from, and then add some chocolate malt and a blend of other kind of roasted malts to produce this seasonal ale. Apparently, we are drinking it fairly fresh, but one thing to remember is that any beer that is roughly 8% alcohol by volume or higher will have a fairly long shelf life, especially if you refrigerate it. We're talking 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
It is going to be good for the end of the show, though, right?
Yeah,
Good.
definitely.
All right. Well, that's the important part. So what's your Suds rating for this one, Reverend Mark?
I give them a 3.
A 3. Oh, what a relief. Okay, all right. Well, good solid beer. Brooklyn Brewery's made a lot of great beers. You know, one of my very favorite events that I've been to is actually the Cask Beer Festival in New York City. And Brooklyn brought some really great beers for that festival. They didn't bring a stout. In fact, I don't remember a whole lot of stouts at that particular Cask Beer Festival. But, you know, I'd like to taste that on cask, you know, next time maybe I'm up in New York City. Check it out. Or you guys can send a cask. Just drop us a note by email. We'll let you know exactly where to drop that to. All right, so that covers Reverend Mark's top 3, right?
Top 3,
4.
and then, we've already covered my top 4.
So it's covered your top 4, so I got one more to talk about here. So my number 4 beer is Schlafly's Coffee Stout. Very interesting beer. You know, it was interesting. The tasting notes that I put on here it was very bitter at the beginning. It was kind of floral, you know, in the middle, but it had this very quick finish to it. The best way I described it is somebody kind of walking by with maybe a bouquet of flowers, shoving it up your nose, and then taking it out and kind of walking along. I mean, it was just kind of, you know, a very quick experience, and still was very enjoyable. Great stout. You know, my Suds rating for this is actually 3. What a relief, you know. But still, it's a great beer. And I think it's a brand new beer. This is a brewery out of St. Louis, right?
Yes.
So that's
Dave Miller, who is a local brewmeister here in Nashville now, was their brewer for a number of years.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Well, great brewmasters definitely don't know geography, and meaning they're not bound by geography, I should say. They know geography. I guess they know where the Russians have been for this particular beer as well. All right, so those are our top 4 for Reverend Mike and good old boy. Reverend Mark.
Yeah, you can tell we've been sampling a few of these already.
It's a Russian coming out in me. Okay. All right, so there's something at the bottom here for both of us. So, Reverend Mark, what's at the bottom for you?
Yes. Well, I had a beer that actually it's a North Coast Imperial Stout, Old Rasputin, that I thought was a little astringent tonight. I don't know.
It's a Russian beer, eh?
Yeah, it's a Russian Imperial Stout. Maybe it was just a bad bottle. I've had it in the past and thought it was pretty good, but we're doing blind tasting tonight, so we had absolutely no idea what was what. So at least tonight, out of the 14 beers or so that we savored, that was my least favorite.
So, you know, one of the things we talked about kind of walking into this was we were owning up to there are different beers that we think of that are reference beers. You know, when we walk up, we think of something automatically. And when we talked about tasting stout beers, I owned up and said I always think of Guinness, you know, as my stout beer.
Right.
And so, you know, for you, what was your reference beer, you know, as a stout beer?
Yeah, well, Young's is certainly one.
Okay, well, with that, let me tell you, unfortunately, that hit the bottom for me tonight. Again, this is a blind taste testing, and we picked up some Young's double chocolate from a really great place here in Nashville, Tennessee, called the Filling Station. Fill growlers on the fly. Really enjoyed it. It's been a great addition to Nashville, Tennessee. Unfortunately, this particular beer just didn't do it for me tonight. So I'm sorry, but my Suds rating for this is going to be at the bottom, which is, wow, that sucks. Please give me anything but a bud. You know, some of my tasting notes around this were, you know, just tasted like watery cola crap. I have no idea what I was tasting, but, you know, probably if you put a Coca-Cola alongside this, I would have thought it's the same thing. The interesting thing we noticed through this tasting is we both pegged which one was the Guinness, right?
Yes. Yeah, and it was a very, very light, you know, somewhat one-dimensional in that you just got a little bit of roast, no real hop flavor or bitterness to speak of, but it finishes extremely clean. and it's very light in alcohol. So it's one of these beers that it's called a session beer that you could have, multiple pints. And
with
really,
the Russian?
Yes, with the Russian.
So, one of the other interesting things we talked about, we certainly have a lot of friends, that, it's interesting. We've always found their comments. And one of the comments that caught our attention is, I just don't like dark beer. We just look at that and shake our head going, wow, it's like saying I don't like sunshine. I mean, it's just,
I don't like chocolate cake.
So one of the things we noticed about this is the characteristics that for some reason are imprinted upon the way that people tend to think that, certain beers taste. A lot of people think for some reason that the tasting profiles for dark beer is very different than light, for a lighter colored beer. And this was one particular example where we thought that the Guinness beer actually did not have a whole lot of flavor to it. And in fact, we've had other beers, blonde beers, that taste, have a lot more flavor, profile to them.
Yeah, well, I would have people think about it in a different way rather than dark versus light, and to look at it as big versus small, maybe, and that a big beer can be a light-colored beer that's still very big in the sense that it's 8% alcohol or above, 8, 9, 10, or even 12%. Certainly some of your Belgian, like a golden ale, a strong golden ale, would look kind of like a Coors Draft or something maybe, or it would certainly not appear to be all that intimidating. But if you drank a pint of that'd be about all that you would really want. Whereas a Guinness Stout, I would call that a small beer. It's dark, but it's light, and it's maybe 3 to 4% alcohol.
But not light in color. It's just
not light in color.
Flavor.
Just light in flavor, and it's a session beer, so that it evolved around a pub culture, where people would go in after work and have 2 or 3 or 4 beers, and it has just enough of that roasted barley that once you had about 2 pints, it's starting to have a cumulative effect on your palate, and you're really tasting.
Laddie. Are you just saying 2 pints of the Guinness?
Well, just 2 to start.
I think me and my Russian friend, we're going to have a very good time. Well, I think that that is definitely something we always run up against is people having misconceptions about the flavor of beer associated with the color of the beer. And definitely, if you sat down with us today, you'd understand that there's definitely a very big difference between flavor profiles, no matter what the color of the beer is. So we really had a good time definitely going through these tastings today. Listen, there were a couple other beers that were in our tasting today, and we didn't go through all of them, in our discussion of our top 4, but we'll definitely post some of our tasting notes on our Facebook page. A couple of these were very interesting. They didn't hit either one of our lists. Most surprising was Green Flash Double Stout. I had this beer at a bar, and I just thought it was phenomenal. I mean, I was just really blown away, and I really would have thought that it would have hit my top 4 easily. Green Flash is making some really great beer, and it didn't get a bad rating. It just didn't hit my top 4, so I thought that was interesting. We talked about Guinness in the mix here. We threw in a Guinness Guinness draft. I'm sorry. It's a Russian coming through, and more leprechauns coming through. Hey, laddie! Okay, so we talked about North Coast Old 38 number South, and that was in the mix. Another beer that we didn't talk about was Fort Collins Chocolate Stout. Fort Collins makes some really great beer, and yet didn't even hit either one of our top lists. So anyway, really enjoyed a lot of great beer, during this tasting. Had a great time. Did you, Reverend Mark?
Very much so, and I'm looking forward to finishing off a few of these pints. That
I know. I'm channeling my inner Russian, before I get done with this. So, laddies, down there in Huntsville, You can send. We'll send down Ivan. That's it. To Huntsville. I'm here for your cognac stout. Yes. Give me the Laika. I want the Laika with the big doggy on it. In the cognac. All right. So we really had a great time today. I hope you had a good time listening to us here at Sips, Suds, and Smokes. We'll have a lot of great topics coming up. We mentioned a couple of them along the way here today, but our normal show will cover topics on sipping a lot of stuff. We'll cover suds like we did today and hopefully some smokes pretty soon. Either way, I know we're going to have a great time. Hey, if you've not checked us out on Facebook, we're on Facebook and Twitter. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes. Hey, you can drop us a note anytime you want on email at sipsudsandsmokes@gmail.com. This is good old boy Mike. I'm going to ask you to just keep on sipping, and we'll have a good day along the way. Reverend Mark, any parting words?
And this is Reverend Mark saying, may the spirit of Christmas be with you, and may you enjoy it with family and friends and a couple of good stouts.
Oh, that's what I wanted to hear. Let's get some beer with family mixed in there. All right, we had a great time. We'll get to enjoy this time. Thank you for joining us right here on Sips, Suds, and Smokes. We hope y'all had a good time. This here recording is done in a dude in the basement studios. Yo, boss, send us some more beer! This is a production of 110 Hand Productions. We look forward to you coming back next time and join us for more enjoyable reviews of Sips, Suds, and Smokes.